Hey, deserving listeners, sister wives, let's watch.
This is not the happy-go-lucky, everything is positive and well in the world Cody Brown that I used to know.
Yeah, and I've said this before, but that is another tick in the column that he was different before and was much more positive and easy to get along with, easier. But what she is saying is he was extra positive, extra optimistic. And when I see that in people, especially for close people, it's one thing to be seen as optimistic and very positive and bubbly at work, but you go home and you become more normal, more yourself, more genuine, and some days aren't great. But what she would say, what she's saying is, close to him, she would say that he was always, like eternally positive. What that is a red flag of is that he did have anger and sadness and hurt, but felt like no one would hear, or he wasn't allowed to feel it, or wasn't in connection with it because of relational traumas growing up. And all of that pain and anger and sadness was piling up and then exploded when things started to unravel.
World Cody Brown that I used to know.
He's been very, very, very angry.
I don't know how you do it. Because he's not who you married. He's not who I married.
No, he hasn't been. No, he hasn't been.
And Robin has been saying this as well, and she's reiterating it, that he is even different to her. She's been around for 10, 12 years or something, so it's not a short amount of time, but it's shorter. So even for her, so the change was recent.
I don't think that I'm the only one that changed here. I think Christine went, this is not the life I want, I'm out. And Janelle's just going, hey, why? Well, this doesn't work for us. We've all changed.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he is deflecting. Okay, y'all changed, maybe for different reasons. But I think he thinks it's an accusation. I would say it's an invitation for care and compassion for him. What changed? What's going on for you? It's not an accusation. It's not that you're wrong. There was clearly something going on. What happened? Let's talk about it. So he deflects by saying, well, they changed too. Janelle hasn't changed. She's changing because you've forced her to. Christine, it's hard to know. It's possible that she would have left the family even if Cody hadn't changed. She was... one way of telling the story is that she was a monogamous person who was stuck in polygamy because she didn't know any better when she was young. There's a lot of arrows pointing in that direction. Even before Robin showed up, the way that she talked, it sounded like she would have thrived more in a monogamous relationship. The way that a lot of us choose, because we don't want to share our husband, we don't want to miss our spouse, we don't want to have to watch them love someone else. There's nothing wrong with that. And she would get jealous, and I think in good days or distracted days with a lot of kids, she was able to keep it under wraps. But once Robin came, she just couldn't. And one could argue that she just, it's sort of like if a gay person is forced into a heterosexual relationship and they over time just have a really hard time coping, and then they leave, right? And then they start to thrive in this gay relation. They find a partner and they are thriving. That's not an indictment on the previous person. It's an indictment on the fact that they were not in the relationship that they were oriented towards. And I believe that there's an orientation towards polyamory, and I guess polygamy is, I don't want to say it's a subset of polyamory, but it's related. So some people are oriented that way, meaning that either genetically or developmentally, it is a form of life that they can thrive in, and it's not going to be a constant rub and aggravant on their attachment and happiness and fulfillment. Whereas other people, there's a spectrum. So, and of course, that's not the only reason why she but he was being a complete dick toward the end there. So, but But anyway, so it's hard to say what Christine would have done, even if he remained super cool or his old self. But the way he say is like, okay, fine, I changed, but everyone changed. And I think he would even say, I only changed because Christine changed, which it doesn't appear to be true.
I'm sad for him.
You're sad for him?
Yeah, I'm very sad for him.
Yeah.
It's really sad seeing him go downhill.
Why is he so angry?
Robin, I've heard him say he's glad. Sorry, I don't buy that he is lamenting. Where has his family gone? Because if he was, he would work more at it.
True, but I think both can be true. The way he frames it, he's been victimized, which is far from what it looks like and far from the way everyone is saying it. But both can be true. He can be causal of the distance, particularly with his kids, and also be sad about it. You can have things that are, motivating you to do. It's sort of like, if we even just move to an isolated individual, if they were depressed, for example, so someone's depressed and they haven't reached out to their friends because when they do, they don't feel any pleasure hanging out with friends, or they just can't even get off the couch. They're just trying to survive minute to minute. Well, for those individuals, when they think about it, they could be deeply sad by the fact that they haven't had any contact with their friends, even though their friends have reached out to them many times and they're the one going, I'm busy or I'm sick or whatever. So similarly, he can both be the cause and sick and frame everything as if he's the victim. I would assume that he's very sad about it, but there's another part, or at least deep down, it kind of looks like he just doesn't even want to think about it. But the feelings are going on down there, And one could argue that like a good portion of his problem is the fact that he is creating a barrier to getting a fundamental need met, which is contact with his kids.
When he really gets honest with himself, this has messed him up.
So why doesn't he want to do anything about it?
What do you mean? What's he supposed to do about it? That is the billion-dollar question. I can sit there and ask those questions. I can say, why don't you figure this out? Why can't you work this out? But Cody's going to do what Cody's going to do.
Yeah, I suspect that is quite true. That Robin has just the way he talks, I just can't imagine anybody. And I think Robin, although is pretty good about being able to smooth things over or to try and her way to work things out, which I'm guessing she has done with him. When push comes to shove, I think she reverts to a traditional patriarchal mindset of, well, it's not my place and I need to follow the dogma of our church, and he's the man of the house, and God has said that he's more powerful or more wise, and who am I to say? Or she's just trying to survive. That's probably a more likely factor, is that she has learned over the last couple of years that in order to survive, and in order, one could even say that in order for her kids to be best served, because the kids would suffer if Cody is in a bad mood. And so, you could imagine Robin trying really hard not to bother him. And he has shown no budging when it comes to any suggestion that maybe he is responsible for part of this. So I suspect that she's right about that.
Even with Janelle, why aren't you reaching out there? I don't understand why Janelle's not reaching out to him either. I don't understand why people aren't trying.
Yeah, Robin's not there. There's been a couple conversations that I haven't reacted to on, I haven't included in the edit, that she will be unaware of what's happening when Cody is talking to others, like Janelle. because Cody doesn't, he won, doesn't say much. And if he does, he paints it very much in his narrative. So she's walking around with a completely inaccurate picture of what's happening, because she's like, I don't understand why Cody doesn't reach out to her. I don't understand why she doesn't reach out. I don't understand why Janelle doesn't reach out to him. Well, we know because we've seen. Janelle or Robin hasn't seen that yet. Presumably after this season is filmed and then is aired, she will have seen it.
Picked me up and we went to dinner. He actually said to me, I have no desire, Mary, to have a relationship with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's been statements along these lines for years now, maybe particularly the last 2 years. But to Mary, that sounds more definitive, and I guess it is. So to catch you up, I'm trying to figure out where I last left. I've watched a lot of episodes. So, yeah, I don't know where I left off, but I've been taking notes. So they had Christmas as separate families. Mary and Robin were, Mary was with Robin and Cody and them. So then also Cody and Janelle have a conversation that ends in a civil way, but things aren't working out really. Mary says she's moving back to Nevada for her B&B since her mom died, because her mom was running it for her. Janelle meets with Christine and says she might be done, but she's not really there yet. She says she still loves Cody, but it looks like she has realized there's a brick wall there. Robin feels like she's being attacked. That's been a theme. And then she goes on the attack, and then the others attack back, Christine and Janelle. So there seems to be a rift happening or continuing there. Robin tries to get Cody to put effort into his marriage with Mary. The three of them talked. Cody passively resists his relationship with Mary, meaning that on paper or verbatim, he's saying that he's open, but he clearly is not. Cody doesn't go on the attack because Robin is there? Question. Oh yeah. So I was one. It seemed like Cody was watching what he was saying because Robin was. What am I saying? Did I get the names? But Cody is not, actively being mean to Mary and pushing her away and acting like he is trying to work things out, even though it's clear he's not. And I was wondering if he was doing that because Robin was there. I don't know. Because Robin has repeatedly said that she wants him to improve and retain the relationships with the sister wives, particularly Mary, because Robin and Mary are connected. Some of the kids indicate that they think Robin is to blame for most or all the problems. The kids, they are not privy to everything that's happening. And I've already talked about how they could come to that conclusion, and maybe it's even true. I'm guessing that they blah, 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 yeah. Janelle says, so another episode, Janelle says that she would consider being in another polygamous marriage, which is interesting. She was also kind of saying she didn't know, given her age, if that was even possible. But, it's just kind of interesting to hear her say that, because Christine has said no to that. Mary convinced Cody to go to dinner. And despite this is what she's referring to. And he was resisting, and he begrudgingly agreed to go to dinner. During the dinner, he nearly said on camera, "We're not married," but he quickly corrected himself and said, like, we're not living together. He said something like, "Well, Mary, we're not living together," and that served in addition to what she's referring to as a wake up call for Mary. So that catches you up.
Our marriage, I had a lot of doubt. Like, are you always going to love me kind of emotions? You know what I mean? And he used to be very, very good at reassuring me. No, Mary, you are my person. I love you. I'm in love with you. I will love you forever.
It's good to hear, because we would hope that it wasn't all a facade when we first met them. When we first met him, it was 20 years later, but it looked like it wasn't as effective and he wasn't putting as much effort as the very beginning, which wouldn't be uncommon in any marriage, depending. But that's consistent with the impression that I had. So we're hearing that in the beginning he was very good at reassuring, and maybe when we first met them he was still mostly good at reassuring, and that has gone.
The fact that we loved each other and the fact that we made this commitment to each other, I thought that that would mean something to him.
Hi.
Hi.
Beautiful.
So this is good. They're doing these flashbacks. They've done this occasionally, but that was a nice little moment. And I was actually planning on doing that, even just for my own interest, my own curiosity, because in my head, he was, from my memory, he was romantic with all the sister wives in the beginning, but it's so hard to picture that. I mean, he's not even romantic with Robin anymore. I suspect he wants all of them gone, the way he talks. He doesn't talk about, I want to be with one person, maybe Robin. Whenever he talks about this, he's just like, I want out of polygamy. I want to change my name and move to another country. He's not saying I want to move with Robin. And the way Robin talks, he just, for whatever reason, Robin, I guess one way of putting it is Robin was the least annoying to him, or the least bothersome or something. He would say that she was the most loyal, maybe the most compliant, which is unpleasant to think about. Anyway, so we just saw that little moment, and I remember that. Now, some would say it wasn't real, but they think it was, and I imagine it was real. Because in order to sustain that for those first 20 years, there would likely have to be something there.
He has said to me, I never loved you and I never felt like that about you.
Okay, well, I was just going to pause on that scene there, but we just heard her say, he said, I never loved you. This happens. I've talked about this before, that when, just for yourself, think about your past relationships and really take inventory of those past relationships in which you said repeatedly to them that you loved them. And maybe even wrote in your diary that you loved them and told others that you loved them, maybe even married them. And then ask yourself now, were you actually in love with them? Well, a lot of people will say, no, I wasn't really in love with them. I was confused, or I was young, or they don't even remember saying they loved someone even though they had repeatedly. Now, sometimes the past relationships, there wasn't love. But more often, case by case basis, but more often it's that we're seeing the relationship through our present eyes, and right now we're not in love with them. And it's hard, it's almost impossible for us to remember and agree with our previous self that we were in love with this other person, particularly if we don't like that person anymore, right? Our brain is like, well, I hate that person. How could I have ever been in love with them? That's stupid. Or I thought I was in love, but I was young and stupid. That kind of thing. So I think that's what he's doing, is that he was in love, or loved, maybe not like to the level of the way he felt with Robin, but loved and was warm and had affection for all the sister wives, maybe particularly Mary in some ways. And now he can't identify with that. And or he is emphasizing that because he wants Mary to go. And the way to do that is to alienate her, and he's tried a lot of things already, and he's just going down the line. He started with Christine. She was the easiest one to provoke to break up with him. Janelle was next, because arguably, although she's a distant second to Christine, she is more likely to be assertive than Mary would be. So either he's conscious of this or not. I don't know. I don't even know if this is the situation that he is unconsciously or consciously trying to provoke them to leave him. It certainly looks that way. And now that Janelle has all but said, let's get a divorce, now it's on to Mary. And he has tried a lot of, he has pushed her so far away from him. And what's left? Well, I never loved you, right? Now, maybe he actually believes that because of the reason I said earlier. But also, why would you say that? Why? Why would you say that? Unless you're trying to provoke.
Like I was trying to affirm it. That was his words. I was just trying to affirm it. It's like, that's a bunch of bull. Ask anybody that we know. Ask anybody who saw us in our early years.
I have to say, these guys are around my age, and seeing Mary's hair reminds me of all the girls my age. Although I think they got married in like 1990-ish, or maybe it was late 80s. There was this brief period of time where the haircuts, just Google like American high school yearbook pictures, 1988, I'm guessing. 85, it was not quite as bad, but there's something about like 87 or something where it just got absurd. Her hair looks fine, but it had this, it was this ethic, who am I to say, but it was this ethic of the bangs had to be from another planet and maybe big enough to reach another planet, while the rest of the hair was limp as shit. But although sometimes I would see the girls at my high school, they would tease out with mousse and I think blow dry it, and it would and you would see their fingers, and there would be this, it was, that dinosaur in Jurassic Park that spits the acid at Newman, and it's like, it just had that kind of look to it. I mean, I'm exaggerating, and my haircut, I had a full on horrible mullet. Before we called him a mullet, I had a horrible mullet. So who am I to talk? But yeah, so she's saying, no, he was in love with me. He's just saying that. That's ridiculous. And yeah, I tend to agree with her. So he either knows he did have love for her in the past, or he has forgotten. So he either knows and he's lying, or as Christine would say, when he met Robin, there was something even more. So he had what they thought to be the ceiling of love and soulmate-ness, but they didn't even know what actually could be achieved. And one could actually wonder if they were soulmates like Robin and him. And what's a soulmate exactly? But if they did have that more that Christine was talking about, if he would have said, I don't want to marry more women. I don't want to jeopardize, it's just, because he wasn't, the way he tells the story, it wasn't a foregone conclusion that he was going to be a polygamist. All right, well, let's adjourn there. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, truly, because you deserve it. You really, really do.